And hello. Oh, that's strange. Hello, you amazing friends. This is Edward's ear and Steph Gobraiel. We're having crazy streaming problems today, but here we are again. Steph, can you hear me loud and clear this time?
I can, Ed. Nice, loud, clear, and you're not freezing. Perfect. Let's dive right in before you do.
There we go. So I just want to apologize to our loyal fans and viewers. I have no idea what's going on, but the fact that it's working now, we're going to pick up our conversation. Now, Steph, before the gods of the internet disconnected us, tell us again about how do you plan for 2024, and tell us a bit about your template and how that all works.
Sure. So my business planning template is for the year, but you can break it down to a quarter. So I'm in the process of creating a quarterly business planning template because not everyone likes to plan for the year, which is fair enough because things change. However, I think, even if you're planning for the quarter, I think that's better than not planning at all. So it's important to really just even think about that. And it doesn't have to be multiple things, Ed. I think that's where the overwhelm and the rest of it, the procrastination and everything else, comes in. I think if you just work on one thing that you want to move the needle in your business, that will be enough.
Yeah. So the thing that's blown me away, and I was saying this before in our earlier stream, is that I know so many really smart people who've said to me, one of them's not a client yet, but I'm trying to get them as a client to sort them out, is, Ed, what do I do next year? They've got no idea. They've literally woken up blind in their business. And what's interesting about it is they're actually a very intelligent person. So I was a bit blown away, actually. They're a very, very smart person. When they are in the workplace, they're very clever. When it comes to their own business, they're just traveling blind. Do you see any of this type of behaviour in your travels, Steph?
I do. And look, at the end of the day, Ed, we're not all going to be great at everything. And that's what I was saying before, right? So planning and that structure and that discipline might not be part of it. Or it might not be, if they're working in the corporate world, it might not be the priority. So it really depends on the person, their circumstances, and, whether they are sort of working full time in their business.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. So, to write a plan for 2024, now, if you are watching, get in contact with Steph. By all means, I'm sure you'll share some great ideas from him. Tell us roughly how the template works. What are some of the things that one should consider in writing their 2024 or their 90-day action plan? What are some of the top parameters you advise people to check out?
Sure. So there's a review and reflection piece. So for anyone that's been in business, for over a year, that's the first part of the process because whatever we're learning, on our journey, it's so important to take some of that forward and the lessons as well. They're the golden nuggets that we need to hold on to in our business. So that's part one. The second part is brainstorming. And then really breaking that down. The third part is really breaking it down to see what you want to achieve before committing to anything. Because what we have in our heads, Ed, is not the same when we write it all down. And I think that's where people get caught. They think, it's a straightforward process. I can do A, B, C, and D, and it will be done. But the reality is you've got A through to Z in order to get it done. So until you write it down and actually see what you need to do to achieve that goal, you're not going to be able to get a clear sort of picture as to how much time, energy, work, and effort you're going to have to put into it.
I love it. And I think the other thing it does as well is when you write it down, it forces you to test the logic with someone. Because what's interesting is, let's say you're thinking weird ideas, right? Mm-hmm. And you're thinking a lot of weird ideas. I find by writing it down, it forces you to test your own ideas and your own logic. And of course, you can forward it to someone and say, what do you think? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So next question is, Steph, what have you got on your business plan for next year? What legendary tricks do you have up your sleeve that you're at least willing to share with us right now?
Sure. So you're actually talking about this year, Ed, not next year? Is that right?
I'm in the year of 2024, which, quoting Justin Trudeau, is the current year, right? It's the current year, right? Quoting Justin Trudeau.
It's that confusing time, right, where we're not quite, that far into the year to say, 2020, like, this year instead of next year. But what I'm planning to, I'm in the process of creating a business membership. And that will have these quarterly planning goals that people can be working through. I'm in the process of creating some digital products as well, to help people with their productivity and really take a really good audit on their time and how they're spending their time in business. And I have a few other things, happening in the works, but I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself, because even the overachievers will, end up in the same place as the people that don't plan, Ed, when you're trying to achieve too much in too short of an amount of time. So we've got to keep ourselves in check as well.
That's funny. They're the two extremes I find interesting. People are either completely vague and have no idea what they're going to do, or they want to land on Mars in the next 60 days. I find it's almost bipolar, isn't it? There's almost one extreme or the other. It's like, but it's a whole middle ground argument, isn't it? You need to be based, plus you need to be reaching for the stars at the same time. Tell us a bit more about the delicate middle ground that seems to be the width of a piece of paper thick. What's the delicate middle ground here? How much should we reach for the stars? How much should we be, based on reality? Tell us what you think on that one.
There isn't a problem with reaching for the stars, but I think in the present you need to be realistic, with what you're trying to achieve. So you can reach for the stars, but if that's not going to take you a year to reach for the stars, then that's okay. It might take longer because life happens. We have families. There's, all sorts of things that might happen, in the blink of an eye. So, just being realistic, I think, is the best way to go, because then you're not setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to achieve something that, for example, will take 3 years, if you're trying to get it done in 1 year, as an example.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Steph, sales and marketing, that seems to be, as you know, it's always a common area where people drop the ball, right? I deal with it all the time. I've done it myself. Sales and marketing, right? Sales and marketing. What are some of the biggest sales and marketing mistakes that people make? My first one is they don't do any of it. That's my first problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the main mistakes you see with people doing their sales and marketing, and what are your tips talking to the positive there?
Yeah, I think, the marketing, it's a bit like the chicken and the egg, but I think marketing comes before the sales, because in order for people to know who you are and know what you stand for, you need to market yourself. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls where people fall down is consistency. You see, if someone just disappears off the face of the earth for, a few months and comes back up, it's like, well, and they don't want to talk about what happened, which is fair enough. But, from a consumer's perspective, it's like, well, how do I know you're not going to do that if I start working with you? So I think consistency is key, no matter, what's going on. And that's why I always talk about planning ahead, because things will happen. But if we're planning ahead, then, if things happen, the ball can keep going, it can keep rolling, sort of thing. So I think with marketing, consistency is one of the most important things. And with sales, it's the follow-up, right? It's touching base. It's not hounding people, but it's saying that, I'm still here. Is there anything I can help with to get you to the point of, wanting to work with me, or whatever it might be. But, it's that follow-up, it's that consistency of follow-up, because if they forget, if the potential client has so much on their plate, they don't have time to follow up with you, and you don't follow up, well, it's going to be forgotten. So I think that's one of the biggest things with sales. It's the follow-up that you do with people, and you do that really well, Ed. So
well, I'm working out. That brings me to the next question. How many people should we reach out to every day, Steph?
According to Ed Zia, it's 10 people.
No. According to you. Forget about me. I know what I'm not interested in what I think. I'm interested in what you think and telling our fans out there.
Well, look, for me personally, it's a bit of an, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me, right, to be 110% honest and transparent. So I'm going to start with 5 a day. in the new
Love
year.
it. Love
And
it.
and as we build that courage, we can build that number up.
Yeah.
But it's starting small and building on that. That's the key with anything that you do in business, right? No one's saying start with 100, start, at the top, because you don't start at the top. You have to start at the bottom and
Yeah.
work your way through and build,
I,
build it up.
I love 5 a day, because to me 5 a day is such a if you do that forever, you're going to build a very successful business, right? Just 5 a day. And that's a big thing, because I meet a lot of people who either do no sales, or they go hard at it for 2 weeks, then they stop it for whatever stupid reason, right? And
Yeah.
I've kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm getting older and more jaded, but I'm getting sick and tired of people who tell me they're going to conquer the world and they stop after a week.
Yeah, I think, the thought, see, I think we've had this discussion before, Ed, where I've said to you, the thought of something, it can be, shiny and bright and exciting.
Yeah.
But once that wears off and people
Yeah.
realize how much
Yeah.
work is involved, right, it's a completely different story. Like, a lot of people say to me, I love what you're doing and, all of this sort of thing. But it's like, all right, so here's the work you've got to put in to get to that point. And then they're like, oh, I'm not sure I want to do that. And it's like, but hold on a second, this is what you have to do to get from point A to point B. So I think when people realize what's in between point A and point B, they just go, no, I don't want to do it.
Reality. I can say, I think it's like, something sounds awesome on the surface, but it's kind of like when reality kicks in, it doesn't sound so awesome anymore. And that brings me to the next question. Well, discussion point: discipline versus motivation. Now, I know what I think on this topic, but I'm interested in what I think. I'm interested in what you think. What do you think of discipline versus motivation and that whole area?
Look, I think they go hand in hand. However, I think it's very easy to get motivated, because that could be external things that can help you get motivated, like music. Like, in the mornings, I get ready, to music. It pumps me up. It pumps my daughter up for the day. That's just one thing, one small thing we do. Where discipline is different. I think discipline is like a human skill that you need to, it's like a muscle. You got to build it up, right? And I think by building discipline up, that's going to help in whatever you want to achieve. But there has to be a level of discipline to keep going, even when you're not motivated, right? And this is the difference between being motivated and not motivated. So if you're not motivated, but you're disciplined, you're still going to keep going. You might not be going as fast as you usually go, but you're going to keep going. But if you're not motivated and there's no discipline, you're not going
disaster.
to.
Disaster. And I think the world is full of brilliant, amazing people with no discipline that have gotten nowhere in life. What do you think of that statement?
I think everybody's situation is different. I was for me, Ed, in the corporate world, I was in a role where discipline was number one, right? Because that's what made me win big in my role. So that was just like a muscle, and, it's part of my skill set, and it's very easy to, to keep, like, just to continue on.
Which brings me to our next question. There are going to be people watching right now, which includes you, who are awesome, that aren't very disciplined and they know it. What are you going to say to these amazing people to build their discipline? Where do they get started, and how would you go about it, Steph?
So discipline's a tricky one, okay? Because I think, like I said, I think it's like a muscle that needs to be built up over time. So I think if you can commit to doing something, for your business and for yourself, and you build on that, I think that will help build discipline. But I think it's also part of someone's character as well, Ed. I think it's either in them or it's not. It's a vague area. I think discipline. Yeah, it's not black and white. It's definitely not black and white.
So are you like? Pardon me, need a coffee. So are you born with discipline? This is a whole nother live stream. But are you born with discipline, or is it something that you develop?
No, I think it's something you develop, because
Yes.
I developed it, over the 15 years of, corporate life that I had.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what sort of set me up to the point of when I started my business, and then
Yeah.
it keeps going. So I think it is something that you need to build up. It's not something you're just born with.
Yeah. So to anyone watching, if you are brilliant and you know you're not disciplined, that's awesome. We're here to help you. My number one advice is get started on something small. What do you think, Steph Gobraiel?
Absolutely. That's all you can do. You
Yep.
can't start big, because that's usually when after a week it falls over.
Yeah.
Start small, and then it's like, the tortoise and the hare, right? Slow and steady wins the race. It's not
Yeah.
always a sprint to, the finish line. So, and the other thing I think that goes hand in hand with discipline, Ed, is accountability. If you have that
Yes.
accountability, it will keep you in check with your discipline. And that's part of what I do as well. So I think accountability plays a role in discipline as well.
Oh, brilliant. Steph, you're an inspirational lady, and I'm so glad we got our live stream working on take two. It's happened before. It's funny, computers, aren't they? Aren't they just strange creatures, computers?
They are, yes, but that's the world we live in, right?
There we go. Now, Steph, thank you so much. Now, friends, if you're watching, like, share, comment, say hello. We love Steph. Steph, can we get some closing thoughts from you? And appreciate you big time, Steph. Some closing thoughts.
Sure, thanks, Ed. So I think my closing thoughts is, you know, we're on the other side of the year now, so we've already started in 2024. So even just take an hour, go to a coffee shop, and write down what's worked in your business, what hasn't worked, and what direction you want to take your business in. Because then from those thoughts and from writing it down, you might create a direction without even knowing it. But I think getting things out of your head and onto paper is a very powerful thing. It's a very powerful exercise. So I'd even just say start there.
Amazing. And also, too, are you pumped for our Novotel Sydney on Darling Harbour meetup tomorrow, which is where I am now?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the rain holds out, but yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And without losing my laptop, check out the view down there. Whoa, there we
Yes,
go. So I'm on the edge right. I'm on the edge right now, as you can tell. So there we
yes.
go.
Very nice. Great views there.
There we go. There we go. So, friends, thank you so much. Thank you to Steph. Like, share, comment, connect with Steph. Steph, you are amazing, and I appreciate you big time. See you tomorrow.
Yes, you will. Thanks, Ed. Have a great day.
Love your work. See you, everyone. Keep
Bye.
winning.